All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Super Tuesday coverage. This is the big hour. This is the ninth inning, if you will. 15 states in one territory voting today, 874 delegates at stake. So far, what do I have? 12 of the states have closed voting. You still have American Samoa, California, Utah, and Alaska to go. So far, right now, this is a big night for Donald Trump. We all knew it would be, but this is going to be a route for him. The states of Virginia, North Carolina, Massachusetts, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Texas, Arkansas, Colorado, and Minnesota have all been called for Trump. We thought that was going to happen, but there were a couple ways in which we thought Nikki Haley could show if she had any strength. Let me start off with Virginia for you and show you what that looks like right now. Virginia right now has Trump. Can we pull up the map there of Virginia? I'm going to show you where we are right now. This is a state. Now, here's the thing to understand. The RNC rules dictate that any state that goes before March 15th must be proportional. The idea is they didn't want a runaway candidate, someone with high name ID or a ton of money, to be able to run away with the process early. The caveat was that the Trump campaign worked with a lot of these state partners well before anyone else really got in the race and said, great, make it proportional, but add a caveat. And in 10 of these states, they did. That said, if you hit 50%, you get all of the at-large delegates. Now, all of these states break up their delegates by at-large statewide and then by congressional district. So right now you can see there on the map, it in purple. Purple is where Trump is winning. Haley, you see these two areas in Southern Virginia and one in the Richmond area where Haley is actually doing well. Now, that doesn't portend well for her statewide, does it? But where would she maybe pick up a congressional district? Well, if you look up where it says Alexandria up there in that top right-hand corner, you can see Fairfax County there. Right now, you see Haley ahead, Alexandria a little to the right of that, as well as Arlington. That makes up most of the 8th congressional district. Those are the suburbs of D.C. You got a lot of people that work in Washington, D.C. for the federal government that are lobbyists, etc. Those are where Haley is going to have her strength, the establishment folks. She had a big fundraiser in Fairfax. You can see she's doing well there. If she's going to pick up anything in Virginia, it's clearly not statewide, as you can see by all the purple. It's going to be probably in that one congressional district. Here's the interesting thing about Virginia, by the way. And for those of you who, before I get too far into this, if you're interested and want to send a super chat, we will take all of those a little later. We expect President Trump to come out around 10:15. We will carry that for you. So you can stay with us. Don't worry, you're not going to miss a thing. You get all this fun analysis in between. We will carry President Trump's comments at 10:15. No word yet on Nikki Haley. I bet you there's a reason why, if you had the night that she had. So let's go to real quick. I sent out a tweet. NBC News did some exit polling, and this is important. This goes back to what I was telling you about that 8th congressional district. If you look at where Nikki Haley's support is, right? This is what this issue is that none of the folks in the media want to talk about. Let me just pull it up right now and show you this thing. This is the exit poll that NBC News did. Trump got 78% of Republican voters in Virginia today. It's an open primary. You can vote if you're a Democrat, if you're an independent, in the Republican primary today. And look at that on the right-hand side. Trump's getting 78% of the Republicans. Haley, 34% of her vote from Republicans. She's getting more independents than she is Republicans. And look at those Democrats. 25% of her vote in Virginia was made up of Democrats. When you hear the media tomorrow talk about these weaknesses that Trump has, keep in mind they're not being honest with you. They're not telling you that there's a bunch of Democrats that had nothing better to do today than to go in and to vote against Donald Trump the same way they would vote in November. That is crucial to understand. Look at that right now. Trump doesn't have a problem with his base. 78%. He's getting 2% of the Democrats. That's probably a lot. And 20% of the independent vote. But Nikki Haley's entire campaign has been predicated these last several contests on pulling in independents and Democrats to vote in a Republican primary. These are folks that would never vote for Trump in November. He doesn't have a big problem. Don't let the media lie to you on this. By the way, one big tell, we've been debating on the show all week, and if you have a chance, please make sure you're subscribing to the channel. on Rumble and on YouTube. So you've always got a safeguard here tonight. If you're watching on the first, please come over and subscribe on YouTube. The thing that you have to remember, we broke this down on the show today, she has nothing on her schedule going forward. Nikki Haley has no event scheduled for tomorrow, anywhere going forward. Does that mean that she's definitely out? No. But it means that she was going to look tonight and figure that out. Again, you start going down these lists, they've all been called for Trump. And because the mechanism is such, as I laid out before, meaning Trump gets 50% plus one in most of these states, he carries all of those at-large delegates. He's going to romp tonight. He'll probably carry between 700 and 800 of the delegates. What does that mean? He's going to come up just shy of the 1,215 he needs to officially be the nominee. If he doesn't get it tonight, he'll get it either next week or the week after. And there are several contests scheduled for Tuesdays, the next 2 Tuesdays. This is just a matter of time, and Nikki Haley knows that. I know the media wants to tell you that she's got support. At some point, the math is what it is. The runway runs out, and she hasn't taken off. So let's look at one other state. I want to pull up Vermont for you. This was the other place that she had a chance of doing well tonight. If you look in Vermont, she actually is doing okay. She's just up a point there. You got about 64% of the Vermont vote in. We're pulling this up for you right now as we go. But take a look at the state there. This was the only other place where she probably could have done well. Look at the results right now. Barely holding a lead over Trump by about just over 700 votes. We'll see where this thing ends up. But that was her one glimmer of hope. She thought she could do well in Virginia, clearly got blown out there. She thought she might do well there. I want to also go to Massachusetts. As you can imagine, Massachusetts is a different kind of Republican, the New England kind, right? You know, more socially moderate, fiscally maybe more conservative. But look at this. If you go down, look at the rump that Donald Trump is instituting there. Almost 64%. Now, you only have 27% of the vote in, but this is another place where Haley really wanted to do well. Not there yet. The rules, again, understanding the rules, it's something we go over every single day on the show. Understanding the rules of the game matters. And while these guys were all deciding whether to get in or get out, Donald Trump and his team were going to meet with these state parties, right? So let me give you an example. Can we pull up the RNC guidance for Virginia, for example? I know we keep going to Virginia, but it's an easy one. It was the first state settled at 7 o'clock tonight. Let me give you guys an idea of what I'm talking about when I show you what this thing looks like, how the delegates are allocated, because that matters. As I said before, when you look at how the only way to win is to get 1,215 delegates, right? And right now, Trump is well on his way there. Why isn't, when Nikki Haley said the other day in South Carolina, 40% was great, that really wasn't, because she walked out of there with almost no delegates. And at some point, if you're not actually adding to the score, in some ways, it's like a soccer game. If you're taking shots on goal, that's great. But if you're not putting them in the goal, it doesn't matter. That's what ultimately matters, who wins the game. You know, you can use whatever analogy you want. You can hit the ball. If it doesn't go into the field of play, it doesn't count, right? It's a hit. Nikki Haley is getting up. She's hitting the ball. She's not actually scoring runs. And that's what matters. But as I said, take a look at Virginia. 48 delegates at stake right now. I mentioned this earlier. 12 at large. We saw how big Donald Trump is leading in Virginia right now. He'll get all 12 of those delegates, right? And then there's 33 that are decided by congressional district. So here's the deal. As I said, the at-large ones, the statewide ones, were proportional based on the statewide vote with a 15% threshold. But the candidate who gets more than 50% gets all the at-large delegates. Now, technically, while there's some other candidates on the ballot in Virginia, you've got Ron DeSantis and Ryan Brinkley and Vivek Ramaswamy. They're still on the ballot, even though they dropped out. But the problem is that the only ones that people are really voting for are effectively two candidates, either Donald Trump or Nikki Haley. So Trump is going to win that statewide thing. Look at the purple. He's crushing it. He's going to get all 12 at-large delegates. Then you go to the other 33 that are awarded proportionally, right? Proportionally based on this. Again, in each one of the congressional districts that Virginia has, you're going to get, in the 10 congressional districts, you're going to get 3 delegates per district. Now, technically, they are proportional. But if you get 50% plus 1, which he's going to, because again, there's only effectively 2 candidates in the race, he's going to get most of those. You saw that map, all purple. Trump walks away with all of those too. Maybe that 8th congressional district that I put to you right outside of Washington, D.C., Fairfax County, Arlington County, and Alexandria City. That might be the one place that she could pull off a win for the congressional and get 3. So she walks out of there of the 48. Trump gets 45. She gets 3. That's not great, right? Look at the things being pumped out right now. She's doing well in Fairfax. She's going to do well in Arlington and Alexandria, where all these DC type folks live. That's going to be fine for her. But that's the max. That's what she walks out of there out of 48 delegates with 3. It's not, the math just isn't going to add up for her. So the big question is, does she drop out tonight or does she wait? Now, I think if you're her tonight, this is when the most media is going to be on. If you actually want to make an impact and do something, make it tonight. But let's keep going down the list. North Carolina, they closed at 7:30 tonight. Let's take a look at how that fared for Trump and Haley. So if we can pull up the North Carolina map, I'll give you an idea of what I'm talking about here. Again, look at North Carolina. All the purple there is Trump. There is not one area in North Carolina where Nikki Haley is actually doing well right now. Trump almost at 75% of the vote there. As I mentioned, North Carolina right now, 74 total delegates, 29 are at large. And if you can see right there, all that purple with, what do they have right now? You've got 83% of the vote in. No question about it. Trump will take all the statewide at-large delegates. That's 29. Then you've got 42 congressional districts. If you look at the rules on how they're allocating their congressional districts, it says proportional based on congressional vote with 20% threshold. Well, they're both probably going to get 20% threshold. A candidate who wins 2/3 of the congressional vote gets all 3 delegates. So this is, again, going to favor Trump. Potentially, she could pick up 1 or 2 in some of these areas, probably outside of Raleigh and Charlotte, but that's not going to amount to much at all. You're talking, again, walking out of a state like North Carolina with maybe a handful of delegates. Trump's going to take, of the 74, he'll probably take between 65 and 70 of the delegates. Not a good showing if you're looking to try to keep this thing close, right? Alabama and Maine closed at 8 o'clock. We went to Massachusetts. Let's take another look at Massachusetts, though. Again, a state where I thought she had a chance of maybe breaking some of the Trump firewall. Let's go down and take a look at that. Only 31% of the vote in there. He's leading with 63% of the vote, right? 63% of the vote in Massachusetts with 31% in. Okay, that's not a whole lot in terms of that, but that's not a good sign for Haley. You know, the stuff that's going to come in early in a place like Massachusetts are the big cities, Boston, places like that, where she would probably do better. That kind of Republican voter is going to favor Nikki Haley probably, as opposed to some people out in the western part of Massachusetts. They've got a total of 40 delegates, 10 at large. Again, the Massachusetts State Party set theirs with a 50% threshold for both the at-large and the congressional district. So what is that going to mean for Nikki Haley? That, again, if she can't get over 50% in any of the congressional districts or statewide, she walks out of a place like Massachusetts with nothing. The whole idea of these rules initially were to allow somebody to go in and do proportionally well and walk out of there with something. But because the Trump team months ago, I'm talking early last fall, sat down with all of these state parties, they all had to turn in a plan for how they were going to allocate their delegates by October 1st of last year. Well, think about it. These campaigns were nascent. They weren't ready to go. They were worried about just staffing up, maybe raising money. Team Trump was ready to go. They've been through this twice before. They were sitting down, helping them craft their plans. to submit to the RNC. And they, of course, were going to make sure that those plans favored them. And tonight is the big payoff for all of the work that they put in. We expect President Trump, I'm being told, to come out at any moment now. We will carry this for you so you can sit back and watch Trump address. It is interesting. I wondered how soon he would come out. He is now out early. He's out before Nikki Haley. Is he going to give an Iowa speech, a South Carolina speech, if you will, the one that's the statesman-like, or is he going to come out all fiery? Tonight's a big night for him. It'll be interesting because I think this is the last time that we're going to see President Trump on an election night. If I think what happens tonight does occur, meaning that this is it, that Haley drops out, or for all intents and purposes, it's over, I don't know that we're going to go through another exercise like this again. As soon as he comes out, we're going to get a sense of, is this the Trump that's ready to unify the party and pivot to the general election? I do think that's what we're going to see tonight. He is ready to move on to the general election, take President Biden head on, and really start to make this a choice between Biden and Trump, moving on to that general election phase. Whether or not Nikki Haley concedes tonight is almost irrelevant. Most of the press, and I think even some of the donors, are going to agree. Now, as soon as we get President Trump, we're going to take that live for you. You will hear him. Then we will come back and do analysis for you. If you want to do a super chat, we will take those after President Trump. So if you have a question, please go to the super chats, ask it. I'll get to it after the president addresses all of us, his supporters there at Mar-a-Lago. A big event down there tonight. And I think, again, maybe this is the last one that we'll see in the primary season. He has no reason to continue to do this if, A, it's pretty clear that Nikki Haley has no path forward. As I said to you before, I think he's going to come close to 1,000 delegates tonight. And if Nikki Haley walks out of here with much to nothing, let me just, coming into tonight, just so I give you a sense of this, if I can, Nikki Haley had 43 delegates coming into tonight. You can see it there. Oh, here we go. We'll take that for you live.
This was an amazing night, an amazing day. It's been an incredible period of time in our country's history. It's been sad in so many ways, but I think it's going to be inspiring because we're going to do something that, frankly, nobody's been able to do for a long time. We've watched our country take a great beating over the last 3 years, and nobody thought a thing like this would be possible. We wouldn't have Russia attacking Ukraine. We wouldn't have Israel being attacked. Iran, as you know, was broke. When I was running things, they were broke. They didn't have money for Hamas. They didn't have money for Hezbollah. We had no inflation. Inflation is destroying the middle class. It's destroying everything. Inflation, if you look back over the history, hundreds of years back, inflation is called a country buster. And that's what it's doing to our country. What's happened with inflation has been unbelievable. A lot of people say, a lot of experts have said the stock market's the only thing that's doing well, and that's doing well because our poll numbers are so much higher than Joe Biden's. He's the worst president in the history of our country. There's never been anything like what's happening to our country. Today it was announced that 325,000 people were flown in from parts unknown. Migrants were flown in, airplane, not going through borders, not going through that great Texas barrier that I was with the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, the other day, and we were looking at the job they're doing. But in the meantime, they're pouring into California and they're pouring into Arizona because those governors aren't doing anything. They're doing nothing. But today it was just announced before I came out. It was unbelievable. I said, that must be a mistake. They flew 325,000 migrants, flew them in over the borders into our country. So that really tells you where they're coming from. They want open borders, and open borders are going to destroy our country. We need borders and we need free and fair elections, or we don't have a country. This is an incredible group of people. so many celebrities that I'm not going to introduce any because I'm just going to get myself in trouble if I do that, because I'll leave out most of you. But this is a room chock full of incredible, talented people, like some of the guys standing right in front of me, right? Big futures, big, fat, beautiful futures. Oh, I'd love to be your age. I'd pay you a lot of money to be your age. But we have some tremendously talented people in this room, including tremendously talented political people that have helped me right from the beginning. We had the safest border in the history of our country. We built 571 miles of wall. We had Mexico supply us with 28,000 soldiers because we wanted them, that's why. And they said, we won't do that. I said, yes, you will, you will. And in the end, they did. It was an easy negotiation, but we had the safest border, the best numbers we've ever had, and now we have the worst numbers probably in the history of the world. It's sad to see what's happening to our cities. Our cities are being overrun with migrant crime, and that's Biden migrant crime. But it's a new category of crime, and it's violent, where they'll stand in the middle of a street and have fistfights with police officers. And if they did that in their countries from where they came, they'd be killed instantly. They wouldn't do that. So the world is laughing at us. The world is taking advantage of us. 3 years ago, we were at a level, we were energy independent. We were going to be very shortly energy dominant. And today we're getting oil from Venezuela. Can you believe it? And we're doing numbers on that oil. You know what we're doing? We're refining the oil. We have our refinery for that oil. It's really, I call it tar. It's not oil. It's terrible. We have real stuff. But we're refining it in Houston. So for all of the environmentalists, you ought to look at that, because all of that tar is going right up into the atmosphere. You just ought to take a look. It's the only plant that can do it. We have the only plants that can take tar and make it into oil, and that's what it is. It's a shame. But we were energy independent. We were going to be energy dominant. We were going to be supplying oil to Europe, all over the world. And then a tragic thing happened during the election. It was a tragedy, because you wouldn't have, think of it, all of the problems that you have today, I don't think you would have had any of them. You'd only have success. And that's what's ultimately going to unify this country and unify this party. We have a great Republican Party with tremendous talent, and we want to have unity, and we're going to have unity, and it's going to happen very quickly. And I've been saying lately, success will bring unity to our country, and it happened before. We had the best economy our country's ever had, and people were calling me that I would have said will never happen. It'll never happen. They wanted to get together, African American, Asian American, Hispanic American, women, men, people with diplomas from the best schools in the world, and people that didn't graduate from high school. Every single group was doing better than ever before, and it was a beautiful thing. Our country was coming together. Our country was coming together. And now we have a very divided country. We have a country that a political person uses weaponization against his political opponent. Never happened here. It happens in other countries, but they're third world countries. And in some ways, we're a third world country. We're a third world country at our borders, and we're a third world country at our elections. And we have to stop that. We need a fair and free press. The press has not been fair, nor has it been free, but maybe someday they will be. They're being beaten up pretty badly. People aren't trusting them. They're not believing them. And really, it's a very important factor. The press used to be the policeman. It used to police our country. Now nobody has confidence in them, and we have to get that confidence back. It's so important for the success of our country. So important. So this has been a day that we've been waiting for. I want to thank my family for being here. It's a great family. I have a great family. They've had it very easy since I decided to run for politics. They say, thanks a lot, Dad. We appreciate it. But they're strong, and they're very capable people, and they love the country. They really do love the country, and we appreciate it. And I want to thank everybody at my staff. Susie, Chris, incredible job. Incredible job you're doing. I read an article yesterday where it said this is one of the finest run campaigns that anybody has ever seen. That's pretty good, right? That's pretty good. It's really a statement. And we have no choice because November 5th is right around the corner. November 5th is going to go down as the single most important day in the history of our country. We're going to take it and we're going to make it like it should be, respected. Right now, we're not respected. Right now, our country is known as a joke. It's a joke. Other leaders who I speak to, other leaders can't believe what happened to us. Because 3 years ago, we were the most respected country anywhere in the world by far. We were doing things that nobody could believe. China was paying us billions and billions of dollars. In 25 years, they paid us nothing, zero, not 10 cents. I was getting billions of dollars, and they were happy about it, as happy as you can be. Of course, maybe there's reasons for things having happened, but they were not so happy with certain things, I guess, based on things that took place. But we were getting along with everybody. We were getting along, and we were respected by everybody. We had no wars. Remember when I had the debate with Hillary Clinton? She said, look at him, look at that personality. He's going to cause wars. I said, no, my personality is going to keep us out of wars. And that's what happened. For 20 years, they were fighting ISIS. I defeated ISIS in 4 weeks. I got rid of ISIS 100%. 100% of the ISIS caliphate. And we had no wars, and we stopped wars. We weren't getting along with a lot of countries. All of a sudden, North Korea, which is a serious nuclear power, but North Korea came along. Kim Jong-un, we got along very well. We got along very well with China until COVID. That was a little bit too much, as far as I was concerned. That was too much. Couldn't take that one. But we made a trade deal with China that I don't even talk about. $50 billion a year in product they bought from our farmers, our manufacturers. They used to buy 10. I got 50, and it was great. But COVID, I don't even talk about that because COVID was such a horrible thing. It started in the Wuhan labs, just as I said, the Wuhan labs. And it came out, I believe, through incompetence. I believe it was incompetence. Some people think it wasn't, but I believe it was. But regardless, it caused $60 trillion worth of damage and death all over the world, all over the world. And we did a fantastic job on that. We never got credit for that. Unbelievable job on that. We came up with things that nobody thought was possible. Don't forget, when it came in, nobody had an idea what it was. They didn't even use the word pandemic. Nobody had an idea. But we did a fantastic job. And we got a lot of credit for the economy, a lot of credit for our foreign policy. I think credit like nobody, very few people have gotten. And the press was very honest about it. They gave us very high marks on foreign policy, the Abraham Accords, so many different things we did. But we never got the kind of due that we should have for the COVID, or as I call it affectionately, the Chinese virus, the China virus, which is a much more accurate term. And despite that, the stock market, when we turned it over, the stock market was higher than it was prior to COVID coming in. It was an amazing thing. And we did an amazing job. And we have so many people that worked on that, so many of the doctors, so many of the scientists that worked with us on that. It was really, really something. But there's never been an administration that had more success in so many different elements. We got the largest tax cuts in history. We have the largest regulation cuts in history. We rebuilt our military. And what happened, we rebuilt our entire military, and beautiful. We had jet fighters that were 53 years old, and we had all brand new jet fighters. And then after this other group of people that didn't know what they were doing, they took over, and we had that horrible surrender in Afghanistan. I call it a surrender. We took the soldiers out first. You know, I dealt with the leaders of the Taliban in Afghanistan. They were the ones that were causing the trouble. The press was very angry because they said, "Why are you calling them?" I said, "Because that's where the problem is." I say oftentimes, they asked Jesse James, "Jesse, why do you rob banks?" He said, "Because that's where the money is." And I said, that's where the problem is with the Taliban. And I spoke to Abdul. He's still the leader, believe it or not. He's really the leader of Afghanistan, but he's the leader of the Taliban, a rough group. I say, don't ever shoot our soldiers again. Don't ever do it. Very interesting. What happened is that, we were having, during the Obama administration, previously, they were shooting a lot of our soldiers. And I let them know, I said, don't ever, ever let that happen. I said, in a rather nasty fashion. We don't have to go into it tonight. For 18 months, we lost nobody in Afghanistan. And then we had that horrible, horrible withdrawal where we lost 13 soldiers, 38 horribly wounded, left Americans behind. You know, we have Americans right now still behind. Call them hostages if you like. It was a terrible moment. We left $85 billion worth of brand new, beautiful equipment behind, jets and tanks and everything you could think of, goggles, night goggles. They didn't used to fight. They're good fighters. They didn't used to fight at night, but now they do because they have goggles. They have better goggles than we have. So I just want to tell you that led to a lot of bad things. And now the worst things are happening. The things that are happening now are unthinkable, and they're unthinkable at the border. We have millions of people invading our country. This is an invasion. This is the worst invasion probably. We've never had anything like it. No country has ever had anything like it. The number today could be 15 million people. And they're coming from rough places and dangerous places. And we had that shut down. We had everything going so beautifully. When Joe Biden goes to the beach, because somebody on his staff thinks he looks very good in a bathing suit, until he can't get his feet out of the sand or lift the chair, which weighs about 9 ounces. Joe Biden, if he would have just left everything alone, he could have gone to the beach. He would have had a tremendous success at the border and elsewhere. So we're going to take back our country. We're going to make sure we are going to do it right. We're going to have the greatest economy ever in the history of our country. We're going to top what we did. We're going to become an energy center of the world. We were ready to become energy dominant, and they stopped that. They stopped that. But we're going to become energy dominant. We're going to pay off debt. We're going to do things that nobody thought was possible. You know, we hadn't done our second phase of the tax cuts. Where we did the tax cuts, the Democrats fought us very hard. And now they say, well, I guess that was pretty good because we took in much more revenues after we cut taxes. And then we did all of those regulation cuts, and people were working, and everybody was happy, and we were all proud of our country. But we're going to win this election because we have no choice. If we lose the election, we're not going to have a country left. And we're going to do something. Thank you very much. We love you too. And we love our country. And we can't let this magnificent, some people call it an experiment. I don't call it an experiment. I just say this is a magnificent place, a magnificent country. And it's so sad to see how far it's come and gone. When you look at the depths of where it's gone, we can't let that happen. We're going to straighten it out. We're going to close our borders. We're going to drill, baby, drill. We're going to get the inflation down. And we are going to make our country greater than ever before. And we're going to do it quickly. We're going to do it quickly. It's going to go fast. We have to get the criminals out. We have many, many criminals that have entered our country. We have people coming in from such bad places, and we're going to have to get them out. We have murderers that are being deposited into our country. We have drug dealers at the biggest, highest levels. They're coming into our country. We have people coming into our country that just shouldn't be here, but many, and I say many, large percentages, they come in through the caravans, they come in many different ways. Now we find out again, they come in through airplanes, we send them in. This is crazy, but they come into our country, we're going to stop them. We're going to close our borders. We're going to have to deport a lot of people, a lot of bad people, because our countries can't live like this. Our cities are choking to death. Our states are dying. And frankly, our country is dying, and we're going to make America great again, greater than ever before. Thank you very much. It's been a big night. Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, there you have it, President Trump. I said this before he came out. What President Trump are we going to see? Fiery, the statesman-like. That, by the way, I took some notes as we were talking. You realize I took notes. President Trump had no notes. He just sat there for, what was that, 20 minutes? Going off. Think about that for a second. The contrast. President Karine Jean-Pierre was asked today why President Biden, in the most basic interactions, needs note cards. And she dismissed it. Oh, this is crazy. How dare you ask me that question? Yeah, of course. How dare you ask anything? Don't you know your place, press corps? You write what we tell you. She was asked that at the briefing today. And she was so dismissive of it. You just saw that man stand up there for 20 minutes and go off. He didn't even have a piece of paper at the podium. Just got off and went and did this. No mention of Nikki Haley, was there? I told you. I mean, he has pivoted. This is the general election. Whether she drops out tonight, whether she ever endorses him, which I don't think will happen, it's over. This is the general election. It begins officially tonight. The primary's over. We're going to continue to count up the delegates tonight. He'll be just shy of the official thing. But remember, in 2016, in May, after the Indiana primary, when I was at the RNC, we deemed him the nominee because there was no other path forward for Senator Ted Cruz at the time. It was impossible for Donald Trump not to become the nominee. And for the sake of getting the general election off and being able to coordinate and raise money, we deemed him the nominee. Well, tonight is it. He can see the goal line, the official goal line. She has no path forward. He is the nominee effective tonight. Whether she chooses to officially say something tonight or tomorrow is irrelevant. Maybe to her political future or to her personal future, but she's done, and she's proven it tonight. All of these states, one after another, boom, 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 Trump. And because, as I said before he spoke, that's how it's going to happen. I mentioned this before this. We will be taking super chats now. If you have a question, get it in there. By the way, if you're not subscribed to the show, tomorrow night, 6 o'clock streaming, 7 o'clock in the first, we'll continue to break down the results and what they mean going forward. Obviously, a lot more to look into the numbers. Let me get back to what President Trump said. What was fascinating, and I really wanted to hear it, first and foremost, the tone. That was a man who came out and said, let me talk to you about my agenda. He wasn't fired. I mean, he was completely and 100% focused on the general election. Okay? He started to make the case on key issues. He didn't come out tonight and talk about, here's what we did in North Carolina, and we did great in Arkansas, and we did great in Virginia, da-da-da-da. He went straight to the general election. The border, immigration, ISIS, defeating ISIS, the economy. All of those things where there's a huge contrast with Joe Biden. This was a speech tonight about the general election, about the binary choice that exists between the policies of Donald Trump and the policies of Joe Biden. Now, when we did this in 2016, it was hypothetical. Here's what Donald Trump will promise to do. Here's what Hillary Clinton will do. For the first time in 100 years, we have two men that have records as president of the United States. There's no hypotheticals. There's no promises. Here's your record. Here's my record. It's like when the kids come home with the report card. The talk is done. Show me the grades. And we can grade President Trump on the border, the economy, energy independence. He mentioned that tonight. Foreign policy, he brought that up again, that failed withdrawal from Afghanistan, that I think, frankly, is what's at the core of so many of the other things that have happened. I don't think that Putin would have done what he did in Ukraine if he didn't sense weakness. He said it himself. I don't know that Hamas would have been as provocative. I can't say that or prove it, but I have a feeling that they thought, what's the U.S. going to do? What are you really going to do? And if you look back at what they've said about Joe Biden's foreign policy, Bob Gates, Obama, others, tonight he was focused. He talked about those accomplishments. And if you think about it, and when you think about it, and when you talk to friends and colleagues and coworkers, and they say, oh, but Donald Trump, the chaos, the tweets, the tone, remind them, what issues do they care about? Do they care about the economy? Do they care about making more money, seeing their home, their community, their city or town be vibrant? Well, under Donald Trump, employment was low across the board, historical lows. Women, veterans, Black Americans, veterans, youth. We benefited as a country. Businesses were growing and hiring. The economy was on fire. The stock market was on fire. Interest rates were low. Inflation was low. Joe Biden's out there today talking about shrinkflation and worried about a bag of potato chips. Now, great. I love potato chips here and there too, and I'd like more chips in the bag. But if that's what you got after 4 years, you're going to give a State of the Union a couple nights and talk about the size of a bag of chips? Are you kidding me? It's like Bill Clinton talking about Monday or midnight basketball. It's small ball. Listen to what he talked about in terms of ISIS and what was going on overseas. It's not just foreign policy, right? It's safety. If they were worried about Donald Trump, I was at Mar-a-Lago when the Chinese president Xi was there. We went down into this makeshift skiff, a secure room, where we watched the bombing in Syria. When it's done, Trump walks back up and looks at Xi and says, I'm sorry, I just had to watch a bunch of bombing go off in Syria. And Xi's kind of looking at him like, what? I thought you went to the bathroom or something. Trump made it very clear. You're never going to know where I'm coming from, and I'll do what it takes to protect the country. Those guys were worried about him. Putin was worried about him. Say what you will, but for 4 years, Putin didn't annex or attack another country. First time that's happened since he pretty much took office, I think. Say what you will. Joe Biden was supposed to be the foreign policy guru, the guy that was going to be the adult in the room and bring back these relationships. Really? Think about it. He's now sent off a bunch of money to Iran, gotten back into the Iran nuclear agreement. And what does Iran do? They fund the Houthis. What are they doing? They're attacking our ships and commerce. That's great. Good job. I think Trump did that. Now, the other thing that he touched on that I think is important, and I was mentioning this before, just to get us back to what tonight's all about. Of the 15 states and one territory that are voting, 10 have 50% thresholds. If you get more than 50% plus one in any of those states, you got all those at-large delegates. And they pretty much did the same thing with their congressional delegates as well. Okay. That was the work of a professional campaign staff. And when he mentioned that, he was right. People are writing about this now. The professionalization of that staff shows tonight. And that's important, not just in the primaries, but as we go forward in the general. It was no accident that he cleaned up tonight. The RNC, by rule, designed tonight to be proportional. As I said earlier, no state prior to March 15th, according to rules, can be proportional. Well, Team Trump sat down with these folks and said, let's be a little creative. What if you're proportional, But at 50%, you get all the delegates. That will meet the rule threshold. It took smart, savvy, professional people to not only execute that, but to put it into play. 10 of those 16 states, and 15 states and one territory, did that tonight. And he is walking away with the fruits of victory because of that. So for all these people who talk about what's at stake, and I've reminded people over and over again, 40,000 votes over 3 states determined the 2020 election. 70,000 determined the election in 2016. This is a razor's edge. There was 10,703 votes to determine Michigan in 2016, 0.22%. 15 electoral votes at stake right there. 100,000 votes separated it last time. 20,000 votes in Wisconsin, 10,000 in Arizona, I think 10,000 in Georgia. This is going to be on a razor's edge. A professional campaign knows how to get out the vote, activate people, create that choice that people have to make between one candidate and another and get them out to vote. This is going to be critical. This election is going to happen in 8 states. Pennsylvania, 19 electoral votes. Georgia, 16 electoral votes. Michigan, 15 electoral votes. Wisconsin, 10 electoral votes. Arizona, 11 electoral votes. Nevada, see, Nevada, folks, I'm learning, I'm getting that right. 6 electoral votes. New Hampshire, 4, and North Carolina, 16. That's a total of 97 electoral votes. Trump doesn't have to win them all. 3 or 4 of those go in his column, and boom, there's your second term. So we need to flood the zone in those states. Get people out to vote. Have these conversations. Talk to them. Joe Biden's record. You heard what President Trump was saying, and I'm going to talk about this on the show tomorrow. We all are focused on the border, the southern border, and how many people are coming in on a daily basis. By the way, shameless plug, if you're walking today, please subscribe. Hit the notification button on YouTube, Rumble, Apple, and Spotify. It's a huge help to the show. Our sponsors make this possible so that it's all completely free. But going and subscribing is what gets us more sponsors and makes them happy. So please just take the time, hit subscribe, share with your friends. Say, hey, every night at 6, you can watch this. Watch it on the first, channel 347 on DirecTV. But please, even if you're watching on the first, go over to YouTube and Rumble and hit that subscription key on both. Apple helps us a ton as well. Thank you. There's my rant. But the bottom line is that this is going to morph into the general election now. And he needs to win a handful of these states. We need to make sure that we're telling people, if you live in one of those states, that's what's important. We need to have those conversations and say, here's the Trump record, here's the Biden record. Too much is at stake. At some point, China will go and take Taiwan. If President Trump's in office, there's no way that's happening. They are worried about his response. Under Biden, I don't know. Look at what happened in Afghanistan. Look at the cues that other countries are taking from that in terms of how we respond. I'm just saying, if you care, understand that we need to go in and have those conversations with people. And I'm calm as a cucumber when I have them. I don't need to fight or get loud. I just need to say to somebody, let's talk about the difference. Energy independence, a secure border, a better economy, lower interest rates, a more secure foreign policy. What do you got, Biden, folks? Shrinkflation? They're really tackling the bag of chips and the cookies? I mean, it's not even healthy for you, so I don't know that that's the right thing to be focused on. Anyway, we've got a lot to move forward on. And we've got to understand what's at stake. President Trump referenced this tonight, and I'm sorry, I forgot to keep going with this. We keep seeing people come over the southern border. And by the way, the only time when someone says, oh, what can we done? How many times are we seeing those non-ports of entry? By the way, Texas has 28 legal ports of entry where you can come up and claim asylum. They're not coming through those. They are coming through cut wires. If Biden really cared, they'd go down, close those things up, and at least force people to go to the legal port of entry. If you're not even doing that, then you are in this country unequivocally illegal. But the news came out today that they're flying people in. They are going to other countries, putting them on planes and flying them in. Do you want, I mean, stop for a moment. That is not even, that's a whole different ball of wax. Now, I told this, I've said this for a while. If you've been watching the show for a while, Stephen Miller was on the show the other day. One of the reasons that border bill is horrible and it's not a border bill is they changed the ability of these immigration officers to grant asylum unequivocally without the judges. Why is that important? The second you get asylum, you're on a 5-year path to citizenship. No questions asked. If you are granted asylum. So what do they want to do? They jack up the number of immigration officers. They give them the authority to grant asylum. What happens 5 years later? You are a citizen. And then what can you do? You can vote. So for all those people who want to say that this is a right-wing talking point, not true. It's in the bill. This is their plan. And now they are going so far as to actually fly people into the country. We have to wake up and tell our friends, our coworkers, our neighbors, and anybody else who will listen that this is what's happening. Listen to this. They admitted it. Look at this headline there. They admit they're doing this. And by the way, think about this for a second. We don't control the Senate right now. We barely control the House. 2 votes. 2 votes. We kick them out. If we lose the House, Katie bar the door, folks. They're going to jam all this stuff in. D.C. is going to become a state. They're going to pack the Supreme Court, and they're going to make all these people citizens. That's not an exaggeration. This is what the plan is. So it's not just about President Trump. It's about making sure that we have a House so that when he gets elected, they can pass his policies, and we have a Senate to get his nominees through. The first 2 years of the Trump administration, think about how many judges got confirmed. Think about how many people he was able to put in place and the policies that got through. The tax cuts, he mentioned those tonight. All of that goes away. They will impeach him, impeach him, impeach him. They will change the definition that the Supreme Court just said needs to get made as far as insurrection and try to kick him out of office while he's in office. They're admitting it. Jamie Raskin, the congressman from Maryland, Democrat that was on the January 6th committee, drafted a bill today with Eric Swalwell, whose girlfriend is Fang Fang, to codify. The Supreme Court said you can't kick him off the ballot. Well, they're going to change the definition of what an insurrection is, put it in law and say, okay, Supreme Court, here is Congress and what they said. And the only thing preventing that from happening is 2 Republican votes right now. If that were to flip and Hakeem Jeffries becomes the speaker, they're passing that bill. And they're going after Trump and removing him from office. Once he wins, they will then take him out and say he engaged in an insurrection. So we not only lose the agenda, but we lose all of that would go with President Trump winning. So I'm just telling you now that that's what's at stake. Thursday night, we're going to hear President Biden try to make this grandiose speech and stand in front of a podium and read a teleprompter for 30 minutes or whatever and talk about reaching out and doing something on the border. Yeah, after 3 years, give me a break. That's what's going to happen on Thursday night. And by the way, if you're interested, we are going live. I'm going to watch that speech with you. If you want to watch it with me, we'll go live on Thursday night. We will watch the State of the Union together. I will be able to see your comments. I'll give you analysis. Katie Britt, the junior senator from Alabama, will be going on afterwards. Be able to watch her. I want to see your feedback. There's rumors that she's going to be a leading contender to be Trump's running mate. By the way, just so I get on the record on this, if I had to put money on it today, Tim Scott. Tim Scott is who I think is going to get picked. You hear Trump bring his name up over and over again. He did it last night during a town hall. Talks about how Tim Scott is a better surrogate for him than a candidate. And he's right. And Tim Scott, I think, would do a great job. And the beautiful thing is, if Tim Scott were to get picked, Henry McMaster, a Republican, is the governor of South Carolina. He could immediately pick a replacement for Tim Scott. And you get a Republican for a Republican, nothing missed. And sometimes you have to think about these choices because there's people that would be good to choose that maybe live in a state where there's a Democratic governor and you couldn't pick them because you'd lose them. And then do you put the Senate in play and lose all the nominations? No way, Jose. Not going to happen. I said this before, but like a Byron Donalds, yeah, he'd be great. But guess what? He's in Florida. Florida has 30 electoral votes. The Constitution doesn't prevent it, but it says that you can't then be from the same state and have those 30 electoral votes count twice. They're not going to give up the 30 electoral votes. These are all the things that we talk about every day on the show. I see that Joshua saying right now, Byron Donalds, yeah, love him too, dude. But that can't happen. I'm seeing a lot of folks tell me on my comment section they want. It's actually a big backlash to Vivek tonight. Interesting. Yeah, Vicky's saying that Tim Scott's also the man. I agree. That's who, if I had to put money on it tonight, I'm telling you, that's where I see things going. But tonight is a turning point, folks. We have turned a corner. The primary is over. The general election began tonight, and the second that he got off that stage, that's what he did. Never once mentioning Nikki Haley or even the states. He didn't walk through. I mean, and he had some big victories tonight. As I said earlier, let me just check in on Virginia to see where we are. I just take a quick look while we're sitting here together as a team. I'm going to go to Virginia. I'll pull it up for y'all. 95% in, 63% of the vote in Virginia. And remember, you can see that. Look at the purple. That purple is Trump. Those two spots, the two spots that are tan are Nikki Haley. The one you see in the center of the state is right around the Richmond area in the suburbs. No surprise there. And the one in that top corner, that's the Alexandria, Arlington, Fairfax area. That's the 8th congressional district. That's where I think Nikki Haley might get those 3 delegates out of Virginia. But that's it. These are the people who work and live in who work in D.C., the lobbyist types, the same people who probably moved out of D.C. because of the crime and voted like they still live in D.C. to some degree. But as I said earlier, when I showed you that exit poll, one last thing in case can I bring that exit poll up that I tweeted earlier? I want to make sure that I show this to everyone before we end, because this is important. If you look at Virginia and you say to yourself, okay, Nikki Haley did pretty well in those 2 urban areas, right? But look at what the exit poll shows according to NBC News. Look at Nikki Haley's column. 34% of the Republicans made up her vote. 41% of her vote was independents, and 25% of her vote was Democrats. This was a Republican primary, but because there was no contest on the Dem side, she actually encouraged Democrats and independents to come out today and vote for her in Virginia and all these other states. The same thing she did in Ohio. And tomorrow on the morning news, you're going to hear about this portion of the vote that he didn't win, that Donald Trump didn't come in. Well, no kidding. Those are called Democrats. He wasn't going to win them. I said it earlier tonight. So what? The media is so desperate. But if you look at the polls, 97% of people who said that they voted for Trump in 2020 are still voting for him. 85% of people who voted for Biden are still voting for him. Who's got the problem? Not Trump. It's Biden. He's got a problem with young voters. He's got a problem with black voters, especially younger black men. He's got a problem with Muslim and Arab Americans who don't like what he's done on Gaza. He's got big, big problems. The base is coming home to Trump. So this is a good night for Donald Trump tonight, and this is a problem for Joe Biden. The biggest problem that Joe Biden has is something that we see every day. His mental acuity, his frailness physically. You can't hide that. They keep saying, let's push him out to go further. Well, okay. You really want to get him out there more? Spot on you. Anyway, we're wrapping up our coverage here tonight. Thanks for everyone who watched on the first, everyone who's here with us online. Please subscribe to the show here on YouTube, on Rumble. Go to Apple and Spotify and just hit the subscribe. Even if you never, ever listen to it, those subscriptions really help us with our sponsors. I appreciate you all being with us tonight. We'll be back here tomorrow at 6 o'clock. Florida Congresswoman Kat Cammack is going to be with us to break down some of the results, talk to us about what's going on in Congress right now and where the road forward is. I appreciate everybody that joined us tonight. Thank you for being with us. As I said, we'll be back here Thursday night for live coverage of the State of the Union starting about 8:45. We'll go through the speech. Who knows how long he's going to go, right? I mean, that's going to be the big question. How long can he stand up there and read a speech? It's past his bedtime. It's going to be a long night. but we will be here, and then we'll go through and cover the Republican response. Anyway, I appreciate you being with us. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you back here tomorrow, 6 o'clock streaming, 7 o'clock on the 1st.